Good afternoon, Sage here. Welcome to the Executive Corner Expert Talks by 𝐿𝐴 TV. Today we have Mr. Joseph Fairchild, the CEO of Metro Realty. And Australia's property market is looking to reach $9 trillion within the next few months. And with property prices surging, we are gaining the experts from the field to share their insights with us today. And so we have on today's show Mr. Joseph Fairchild, the CEO of Metro Realty. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you.
And with your experience leading teams in the property market in Sydney, we're keen to hear your insights today. So let's begin. Buying a property is a decision that shouldn't really be rushed into, whether it's for investment or to reside in. How does your company, Metro Realty, fit into the process for buyers and sellers, please?
Well, we sell the properties which become the investments or the properties which people live in. So in selling the property, they first of all need to take ownership of it. And then we, of course, can manage the property, which then allows them to build their wealth by hanging on to the property over the long term and having that capital growth.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So you'd be very busy at the moment, as we're seeming to be in some sort of a seller's market at the moment, and property owners have been keeping the valuers busy at the moment to see what they can hopefully create in some wealth return. And we've seen prices exceed even 5%, 7% more. Even some people are saying they're 9% higher than they usually are selling for. Do you believe properties sold at auction allow a larger return for sellers?
Sure. Well, let me address something first. I don't believe it's a seller's market at all at the moment. It's a quite a balanced market, leaning even towards the buyers. So I don't believe it's a seller's market. Maybe in some pockets, such as house and land, but where we're at in the city, it is definitely not a seller's market. So far as selling at auction, so far as achieving the return on investment, it really depends on the purchase price of the property, because you have fixed expenses. You've got to achieve a certain return on your investment. The only other variable is going to be the purchase price at which you bought it for, which determines your return on investment. At auction, it could be either way. You could get it for a bargain, less than you could at private treaty, or you could be paying a lot more competing against other buyers also. So it really depends on the marketing campaign, I'd say, of the agency running it. If you've got a good agency running a good marketing campaign for the auction, well, then it will hopefully sell for well and above its current market value. And we're hearing a lot about that in the media right now with house and land, especially up north, out east, selling for hundreds of thousands above reserve. That is just the nature of the market, really. So return on investment, it depends on the price at which you buy it for.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that insider's view, because when you read the articles in the newspapers, it really sounds like it's booming and it's really time to get into the market to sell your property. And it also says that it's not the best time for the first home buyers to get involved. And I guess that's where I was getting the impression that it could be a seller's market. But thank you for sharing that insight. Construction has seemed to be booming in Sydney, although there has been some controversy in regards to the quality of materials used for construction in the high-rise apartment blocks. Is there resale value in apartments, and does it have to be long-term?
Well, there is definitely resale value in apartments. Now, I think we're thinking about a lot of the newer apartments, which are what we call off-the-plan sales. Keep in mind, developers who sell these properties, they are selling them in the current market at the future value. So the resale value of a property really, again, depends on the price at which you buy it, which really depends on the market that you're in. In this market, it might be the case that it's not the smartest investment to make off-the-plan purchases. However, if you're in it for the long term, as you said, you can't go wrong. Even if you pay a premium for it, over time, the market will forgive you. I say forgive because even if you paid a little bit more than the value, over time, you'll just have that capital growth, and that capital growth will forgive what you paid if you paid over and above what it really is worth. In this market, it's quite a tough market right now. There's a lot of variables. Although interest rates are low, that means finance is cheap. you've still got to be very smart with the purchases that you make.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights there. And I like how you put it, that the market will forgive your purchase over the long term, because some data shows us that over the last 40 years in Sydney, house prices have almost doubled every decade. I don't know if that is correct from your perspective.
Correct. Every 7 to 10 years, that's correct, on average.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And we're getting to the end of the discussion here, but hopefully we can fit this last question in. The buying versus renting argument is interesting to investigate. Do you have any insights to share on the benefits of renting or buying in the current market cycle, please?
Sure. So I've been both in my life also, and of course it is cheaper to rent. However, home ownership over time is what's going to build your wealth. So it's not necessarily the rental return on your investment. It's more so the capital growth over time. And having ownership of property, however you get it, whether you're a first home buyer, whether you can't afford it, it's just a matter of getting that finance approval. The finance is key. Getting those boxes ticked with the financiers, the banks, and then getting your foot in the door if you don't currently own property. If you do own property, great. It's just a matter of really having a portfolio that is sufficient enough for you to retire on. So there's a bit of planning involved in that. But the ownership of property, I believe, is the key, because that is what builds your wealth. And of course, if you can't afford the deposit to buy the home, to own it, well then rent at the moment until you can. Save, be a bit frugal, and partner with someone if you need to, but get yourself into home ownership, because again, that is what builds your wealth over the long term. Thank
you, Joseph. Actually, if I could just ask you one question, a little bit aside from the discussion, about investment grade properties and whether they are sold off market or not. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Do you have any insights to share on that side of the property market?
Sure. Investment grade property might come in the form of a commercial investment, for example. There are a lot of residential investments that are great. Commercial returns, for example, if you're buying an investment grade of, let's say, a residential with a serviced apartment component, they will return more. That is, your cash flow will be higher. So some may call that a cash cow, but the capital growth on those service apartments may not be as much at all compared to a residential. So be careful with the investment grade. If it's residential, on average, 7 to 10% growth per year, which we've just discussed. But if it is not residential, if it is a residential property with a serviced apartment classification, for example, which is a different investment grade, that will return higher, as I said, in rent. That's your return on investment. But the capital growth over time will not fare very well. It won't double every 7 to 10 years. It might take several property cycles for it to double. Now, if you're talking about investment grades of commercial investments, like commercial property, where there's a retail shop or a commercial office, which is not residential, they have a higher return when it comes to comparing it with residential, for example. But they are a lot more risky. In this market, you might be without a tenant, a retail tenant, an office tenant, for quite a while, which is a very dangerous position to be in. So I prefer the investment class of residential. It is proven throughout time. So far as an investment, it's a business system, and on average 7 to 10% growth per year. That's doubling every property cycle, and that's a solid investment compared to a lot of other riskier investments. That's just my opinion, but my clients swear by it, and they've built their wealth over the years just on pure, safe, sound strategies, residential property investment.
Well, thank you again, Joseph, for taking the time to share with us your very valuable insights on the show today. It's definitely achieved some clarity for myself on the situation. Was there any last comments you'd like to share with the viewers before we wind up?
Oh, look, we're in a state of COVID right now. It's a very unusual time. I would say if you can take advantage of it by way of finding deals out there are always deals out there to be made. There are always properties being sold. There's always properties to buy. That's the bargain of a century. So no matter what stage you're at in your investment journey, whether you're just starting off, whether you're a seasoned investor, there's always opportunities out there. And right now is the time to think counter-cyclical about it. So right now is a very good time to buy or to sell even.
That's good to know, really keeping the options open. And thank you, what a great positive note to finish the discussion on. And if you've just joined us, we just had a very interesting discussion with Mr. Joseph Fairchild, who's the CEO of Metro Realty here in Sydney. You can watch the full discussion via the YouTube channel on 𝐊𝐴N Media, and stay watching 𝐊𝐴N TV for more live market updates and expert talks. And as we say, stay apprised and invest wise with 𝐊𝐴N.